Hi everyone! So in the new Houdini 19.5 we can play with the fluid simulations on sub level. That's pretty awesome because we can apply knowledge from vellum and pyro to fluids. So now making rivers, collisions and mixing different fluids is much easier with just a few nodes. In this tutorial we will start with the basics, transform a sphere into liquid with different viscosity and let it splash and melt as an ice cream. Hope you enjoy this one and let's have some fun! Let's start with something simple. Let's place our geometry node and call it liquid. So now with the flip simulations on sub level, it is almost the same as our pyro. Remember, on pyro we have this configure, bonfire, fireball that are examples or shelf tools from the Houdini that builds an system ready for that. And on our flip, we have the same. We have configure flip, configure lava, and a few others, okay, that you can try. It is an easy way to learn, so let's go and start with flip, configure, flip. This is the simplest one, and it creates a nice system to explore and start exploring this, okay. On the right side, we have the geometry source, okay. On the middle, we will have the flip system, okay. And to start this, we have the flip tank. It's the same as we work on top levels. We have the flip tank where you define where the simulation happens, okay. Outside the flip tank, there will not be any fluids, okay. Then you have a bunch of nodes, different nodes. If you see other tutorials, you see a boundary, you see collisions and stuff like that. On this tutorial, we are going to keep this simple and we are going to use on the flip boundary. And this flip boundary, they could call it flip source because it is how you control the source, okay, of your flip simulation. Right now, you can see there is an expression on activation. So if you don't have this expression, this expression is saying, as we did on particle simulation, it is saying only activate on frame 1, okay. So if you didn't have this, it would emit all frames your source, okay. And as you can see, our geometry is linked to the fourth input, and this input, if you hold here, let me hold the mouse, hold the mouse to the fourth input, it says geometry to source, okay. So this fourth input takes geometry, okay. It has to be a geometry with polygons, okay. It doesn't work with points, for example. So here they have the rubber toy, the geometry. They are subdividing to increase the points, okay. And then setting the color to point attributes because before it was on UV. And then they have a point wrangle, just setting up a new parameter called viscosity. Okay, it's a float parameter as we did on previous fluid simulations. Okay, on top levels, you can create a point parameter and it works the same. Here is a simple expression saying, okay, on this geometry, if the point is above the Y position is above 0.3, have this viscosity, okay, number. If it is below, it has 100 viscosity, okay, simple as that. And then when you convert to a flip source, it will take those point attributes. So all these point attributes like color, normal, position and viscosity, and you could add density too, they will be imported to your flip source, okay. And then the flip solver, it is like the vellum and the pyro solver. You have a few parameters here on the top level, okay. And if you dive in, you can start adding forces, change the volume and change the source, okay. And for example, you could add a curl noise force here, turbulence or wind or something else, and it will change your simulation. It's almost the same as same knowledge as you do on vellum and on pyro source, okay, and even on, well, particles are different, but it's almost the same logic. Oops, I broke this. And before we move forward for the render part, okay, on the flip tank, there are a few things that are important. The flip tank will control, or it will initialize the simulation, okay? So you have the bounds here to use this box. You could link another geometry to control the flip tank size, but we are not exploring this right now on this tutorial, okay? The flip tank, you control the resolution. If you lower this particle separation, you will have more particles, so your fluid simulation will be better with more resolution, but will take much more time. And for now, I'm going just to increase this to 0.1 to be faster while doing the tutorial. And you saw that by changing this, the rubber toy, the simulation changed too. So right now, this simulation has a tank of 10 by 10 by 10, a simple box, okay? You control the force, the gravity here. As I said, you can manually add density, or you can change varying density, and on the source you should have a point attribute called density. Okay, but for now let's uncheck that and set any initial density. Then you can turn off or on the viscosity. We are going to explore viscosity because now it's really simple to mix liquids with different viscosities. Okay, and by unchecking varying viscosity, you can set an initial viscosity, okay? Or varying, you have to have a point attribute, as we already have. Okay, that's pretty much for the flip tank. Then you can have more like add ID attributes for the points, age, and stuff like that. Right now we are just importing the color, okay? Because we have it on our rubber toy, okay? But you don't need that. And on Flip Solver, let's check this just quickly, the top parameters. It is a simulation, it is a solver, so you have the normal timescale, substeps, and cache size. Okay, I like to increase to 15,000 on my computer. Waterline, this is for the flip tank. If you work with rivers, swimming pools, or ocean, this is important. Okay, collision, particle, and the ground, like we have on vellum and pyro solver. Right now it is on -2. As you can see, that blue grid, that is the ground. If you increase the ground, for example, for the origin, it will ignore all the particles below the floor, the ground, because there should be nothing below the ground, okay? And then fluid behavior, always use this epic, or if you want a splashy one, use the other one, but the epic brings us more or better results, okay? You can reseed, we will explore this on future tutorials. Visualization, you can color by speed, but right now we are using the colors from our rubber toy, from our geometry, right? That's why we created a point attribute with color, so we can use that on our flip source. And then advanced, nothing too fancy. So right now, if I press play, let me simulate until frame 60 and be right back with the cached simulation. Let's see the simulation. Remember that the viscosity is different. So here on the bottom is 100 viscosity, and as you can see, the head has more viscosity, as you can see. Right, pretty cool. So now let's delete this and do our geometry, okay? So I'm not deleting, I'm just cutting this out and move this to the side. So first things, I want to put the ground plane on the origin, because it doesn't make sense to me that the floor is below the origin, okay? And let's put a sphere. Let's change it to a polygon. It's easy to control the points. Let's increase the size to 5, and then let's increase this to 15. So we have a bunch of points. Okay, and let's move this up. I like to move with the transform. And let's move this like 5. Okay, pretty cool. And let's link this here. Right now you see that our geometry source is cut in half because our flip tank is just like that. So first thing, let's increase the flip tank. I'm not going to explore this for now that much. And the only thing that I want is move the flip tank up, because it doesn't make sense to be below or that much below the ground. Let's move to 6, so we have like 1 unit below the ground, and that's pretty cool. And we can even decrease this if we want. Okay. Only the sides are cool because it's going to make a little splash. Right now, if I press play on this, it will like behave. And right now it is black because our flip tank says import the CD attribute, the color attribute, and we don't have any, so it is black or 0. So as you can see, we have normal water, nothing too fancy, but it's a start. So now let's, instead of adding viscosity with wrangles, let's explore a bit further and let's use a point vop. So we will use turbulence to control our viscosity, right? So let's do a turbulence and link this to a ramp. So we can control like the contrast or give contrast to it. Change to float, okay, to spline float, and make these 2 colors so we can see the colors. And right now our ramp will output numbers between 0 and 1, and we want to change that, right, for the viscosity. So let's go with fit range, link the ramp to the vol, so we know the ramp varies from 0 to 1, and we want to promote these ones. Okay, and let's call them mean viscosity. Let's copy paste this, and the other one will be max viscosity. Okay, oops. Okay, now it's working. And we want to export this to a new parameter, okay, that is not here. So let's go with bind export. Say it is a float, link this here, and call the new parameter viscosity, because we know that the fluid simulation takes that point attribute, okay? One other thing that I forgot is to change this. Let's go with the 3D noise and change this. It can be a 1D noise because we are working with floats, and we can promote these parameters. Okay, so we can play with this VOP. Let's call it turbulence. We can play this here. So let's go with linear, and right now let's increase the contrast. Oops, something like that. Let's right click, copy relative. I like to do this because right now I only need to change in one and it will change on everything. Okay, that's pretty cool. Maybe I want a bit more white, okay, and a bit more contrast. That's cool. Maybe less roughness. Okay, that's pretty cool. And I want the viscosity to go between 1, for example, and let's go 100,000. So five zeros. So right now we have the point attribute, okay, the new point attribute. And even if you want to check that out, you can come here and go to geometry spreadsheet, and you can see if you have on points, you can see the viscosity on this, okay, on these 2 values. We might have a few values between. Let me scroll. Okay, here they are, because between those 2, 0 and 1, there are a few gray points, and those will work on fit range and be between these 2 values. So right now, if I link this to the flip source, it will create everything, and I press play. As you can see, some of the points have viscosity, because you know the white means viscosity. And if I press play, you can see some of them have viscosity and others don't. So you can see a little bit of chunks of viscosity over there. It looks like a melting ice cream, right? But right now, let me change this because I don't really like attribute color. Just color. I don't like to work with black and white. So let's go. Let me try to remember color ramp. And here I want to use viscosity and compute range. So, oops, and much better. So as you can see, we have some viscosity and we have a lot of liquid, normal liquid. So the purple one, you know, it's normal liquid. Let's go something more waterish. Okay, that's pretty cool. But in my opinion, we have a problem because right now we are adding points only on the surface, right? We don't have like attributes inside our sphere, right? They are trying to compute that when creating a volume. They are trying to process that, and here they are trying to add, but it will be always processing because the attributes, the ones that we want to use, are only on the surface. Okay, inside the sphere, it's just processing and trying to calculate the right viscosity, and we want to control that. Okay, and in order to do that, we need to convert this to some sort of volume or points inside, and then apply our logic. Okay, we could use this with volumes, but since we already created a point VOP, we are going to use points because they are easy. So let's go with points from volume. I need to write it correctly. Point from volume. Okay, and as you can see, let me increase the jitter scale. We create some points there. Let's change the point separation. So we have a bunch of them, but not taking 500,000 points. And right now we can link this to our turbulence. And as you can see, let me try to pick, maybe change this. So as you can see, we have some points inside and we have those values even inside. So we are creating like a cloud or noise clouds inside, okay, with different viscosities. So right now, let's increase these a bit, maybe something like this. That's pretty cool. As you can see, focus on this, on the middle. As you can see, that is inside. It's not just on the surface. We have a few parameters inside. But right now, we have a problem, okay? Because when we link this point VOP to our flip source, it won't work because this fourth input is asking for a geometry and we have points. So I need to find a way to convert this to geometry. Okay, so let's go. So we have points. Let's create this to VDB. And we know that VDB from particle fluids works really well with this. And we have particle separation. Let's just pick this and keep everything procedural. So if we change anything above, it will apply. And let's decrease a bit to voxel scale. Okay. And I believe this doesn't work with volumes too, or it does. It does, but it's not that well. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So it is working with volumes, but we lost the point attributes. So let's keep it simple and work with only geometry. So let's go here, and we could like transfer those attributes to here, but let's convert this to polygon. To polygons. And right now we have the same as here, right? With a little bit more deformations, but now it will work as well. But as you can see, it works as the same as volumes, but we want to do something else. So, and I want to keep the explanation focused only on geometries and point attributes. So right now we have this convert VDB and we need that viscosity attribute. We could do an attribute transfer, but we would have the same problem as before. We would end up with something like this. Let me change this. We would have something like this only on the surface, because this convert VDB, it's creating a surface, okay? And we don't want that. So what we will do is a little trick. It's not a little trick, but we are going to blast everything. So we are going to create two geometries, one with high viscosity and one with low viscosity. So for that, we are going to use a group expression. Okay. This group expression will be on points. Let's call visc group. And I like to use example like this one. And here I want to use CD point X, okay, below 0.5. So we know those points selected are the black ones, so it will be the lowest viscosity. So right now, okay, this one is a bit too high, so it's taking a lot of time. So here, let's put a blast. Let's delete this group. So here are the darker points, right? So we know those are the no viscosity points or lowest viscosity, and then we will have the highest viscosity. Okay, and as you can see with these little tricks with point form volumes and turbulence, we are adding different viscosity even inside. We could, like, let me increase this to 4, maybe something like this. Let's see how it works. I'm trying to have more points in the middle. So let's play here. Okay. Nice. So we have a bunch of viscosity inside. That was not possible by using only surface, right? So right now we are converting this to VDB. So this is the darker one. It will be the no viscosity. So let's go with attribute create. Attribute create. And here we want create viscosity. Oops, without a space. Okay, it is a point, it is a float, size 1, and we want the value to be 1. Okay, so right now we have viscosity, and let's recheck with geometry spreadsheet. So these points all have 1 viscosity. And now we want to do the same for our high viscosity group. So as you can see, we have a bunch of them. And maybe I want to increase this voxel scale. Okay, convert to VDB, and then viscosity is okay. And this I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 viscosity. And if I recheck this, okay, it is processing. Okay, so these ones have this 100,000 viscosity. Okay, and by doing this now, we can like merge both of them. Okay, so we have the field sphere and link this to our fourth input. Okay, so let's move this up, down a bit, so we can keep everything organized. So as you can see now, let's go to our attribute, compute range, and it looks the same as before, but if we check inside, we will have the right attributes. So as you can see, I'm zooming in and all the spheres are red on that spot. And even if we want, we can like do something like this. Let's wait a bit so it's processing. And we can like link this here. So as you can see, we still have the same. Let me decrease now this. Okay, so this is the non-viscosity and the viscosity is this one. Okay, pretty cool. And now, okay, this is something wrong because I don't want this CD, I want viscosity. Okay, let's try again. So, okay, now that looks better. And where is it? And this, as you can see, we have those holes. Okay, right now, let me come here and I want to increase this. We have a huge chunk of viscosity here, and I'm not really enjoying that. Something like that. 3. Let's move this something like this. I think that's much better. Let's see how it behaves. Okay, that looks cool. And we have a nice chunk of viscosity. Okay, very cool. So right now we can animate this, and I will animate and be right back with the simulation done. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So when it breaks or when it collides with the ground floor, as you can still see, we have a better result, but I didn't want to explain this when we were checking the blast. But even now, there are some issues because now it looks like everything inside is has a lot of viscosity, right? And if I recheck the blast, and I didn't want to explain this before, we have our chunks, but in the middle we have a lot of viscosity. And if I uncheck that, we have some weird artifacts here. Okay, and as you can see inside, now it looks like it is the opposite a bit. It's a bit better, but it looks like it's the opposite. Now inside it is all viscosity. And we are getting there, but this is not the result that we want, right? So what can we do is, instead of merging everything and using only one source, we are going to use the first source for this one. Okay, so if I check here, we don't have high viscosity, but if I do non-select, now we have the right shape, okay, and everything. And if we have another one inside, it will be individual and not that big chunk of viscosity. And we can check another alt drag, okay, because we want the same. And on this new one, okay, we want the high viscosity. Okay, that's pretty cool. And because it is a flip source, it is checking everything, but it will keep the viscosity well calculated for us. Okay, and right now let's see, and we see that we get those chunks that we want, but we are not like merging everything, right? When we were using just one source. Okay, that is much better. And now let's see the full animation. So let's save it, press 90 and be right back. Okay, let's see how this looks. Okay, nice. So we have that splatter. That liquid, the blue one, doesn't have viscosity. And then, as you can see, we have our chunks. And if I come here, you can see that we have those chunks of viscosity as we wanted. Okay, that's pretty cool. And all together looks like this. Pretty cool. And now, how do we render this? So that's why I like to use the custom examples from Houdini, because they prepare everything to render out. So they have this flip compressed. It's going just to compress that to little chunks of information. Let's call it like that. Then it has a file cache, and then the particle fluid surface. It will create these from these volumes. It will create the particles surface. Okay, the polygon. So let's see how it looks. Pretty cool. And this is an old node, so I'm not going to cover that much. So these are the attributes that you can transfer, including the CD. If you want for your rendering purpose, you can import the viscosity too. And then filtering, I like to turn on this because it will smooth out a little bit those splatters and everything. I can even play with these numbers, but for now I'm not going to do that. So that's pretty cool. And now how can we render this stuff? Right now we have polygon soup. That's pretty easy. If you want, you can convert that to polygons, but it works for Redshift. And I'm just going to show you my example here. So I have just a camera, a dome light, and two lights. Let me just, oops, not this, here. Okay, so I have a dome light, a camera, and then I have two lights, one here on the side, as you can see, and one on the top. Okay, then I have this material for the floor, just a black one with a bit of reflection. And then I have the liquid one for that goo, let's call it goo. I use the preset tinted glass. Okay, so it doesn't have diffuse, it has reflection. And then I uncheck this link to reflection so I can play individually the refraction IOR. Okay, if you increase this, it will look more of a gammy style. And then on subsurface, I have this color so I can play with it. Let me try to show you. Let's press render view. Let's see if it doesn't crash. Right now, I don't know why, but Redshift with the last Houdini tends to crash a bit when I'm changing too many things. But let's see. So with these colors, you can see the green is the dense ones, and then that kind of orange goes to those parts. If we increase this, maybe like 8. It will change and look more of a gammy and not those things. And you can play with colors. Let's go with something like this. And maybe a pinkish. Something here. It's taking a bit of time, but let's see how it looks. Something like that. Let it process. And voila. You can play a bit with the colors right now. And that's how I like to render these kind of materials and simulations. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Let's go back to our project. Let's come here. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So just to recheck everything, let me press ESC, come back here. Just to recheck everything. So we created a sphere, we moved, we create points, okay? Then we blasted so we can have different geometries, right? We have this one and this one, and then we imported them with different boundary sources, okay? Because as we explored, even if you merge and import everything with one source, it will process and will like link these points together and have a big chunk of viscosity in the middle, and we want everything separated, right? That's why we create two boundary sources and then flip and let the magic happens. Okay, on the next tutorial, we might explore collisions, okay, or someone dancing in the river or something else. I don't know. I will explore next week. And I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, feel free, and I really recommend exploring configure. These ones, you have the configure lava, it's pretty cool. And the wish tank is pretty awesome as well, and wave tank, and we might explore the next one, the wish tank or the wave tank with a dancing guy in the middle. I don't know, I will explore, but I want to keep this one really simple, okay? So you could see how you can impart different geometries with different viscosities and let it simulate and show you that is pretty easy right now to do that. Okay, hope you enjoyed this one and see you on the next one. Bye bye.